Shalom and welcome to this episode of Ask Aviel. My name is Aviel. You can ask me questions so that we can share, learn and grow together. In the era of the kings in the kingdom of Israel, King Saul, Shaul HaMelech, was anointed and inaugurated the first king of Israel. During this time, David was just a little young lad. When David fought Goliath on the battlefield, the oldest he could have been was 15 years old. In 1 Samuel 17, we know that David was the youngest son of Yishai, an Ephrathite of Bethlechem, Yehudah. Yishai had 8 sons. The 3 eldest sons of Yishai went and followed Shaul to the battle. The names of these 3 sons that went to the battle were Eliab, the firstborn, and the secondborn Avinadav, and the third Shammah. The 3 eldest followed Shaul HaMelech, and David was the youngest. In Numbers 1:45, we are told that all the Israelites 20 years of age or older could serve in the army of Israel. 1 Chronicles 2:16 tells us that David had 2 sisters named Zeruiah and Abigail. We know that Eliab, Avinadav, and Shammah were aged 20 and above. 3 sons of Yishai followed Shaul HaMelech to battle, so there were 5 more sons at home, all of whom were too young to be on the battlefield, including David. Since only the men aged 20 years or older could join the army, all the 5 sons who stayed home were 19 years old or younger. David had 4 more older brothers at home, aged 19, 18, 17, and 16. If David were older than his sisters, he would be 15 years old. If David were younger than his sisters, then one sister would be aged 15 and the other sister aged 14, and David would be aged 13 years old. I have made the assumption that David's mother had 1 child per year. It is possible that the gap between some children could be more than a year, and this would make David even younger than 13. In 1 Samuel 31, Shaul HaMelech was fighting against the Philistines. The archers shot Shaul HaMelech, and he was badly wounded. He said to the armor bearer who carried his armor, "Pull out your sword and kill me. Then those uncircumcised men won't make fun of me and kill me." But the armor bearer of Shaul HaMelech refused because he was afraid. So Shaul HaMelech took his own sword and threw himself on it. When the armor bearer saw that Shaul HaMelech was dead, he threw himself on his own sword and he died with Shaul HaMelech. Both of them committed suicide. 2 Samuel 1. David received news of the deaths of Shaul HaMelech and Jehonatan. He mourned for them. David went to Hebron, and the tribe of Yehudah appointed him to be their king. At this point, David was only officially recognized as king by the tribe of Yehudah. The other tribes of Israel did not recognize David as king. In 2 Samuel 2, Shaul HaMelech's captain, Avner, became leader over Israel. The Philistines were a major obstacle in uniting the 10 tribes of Israel. 5 years after the death of Shaul HaMelech and many conflicts with the Philistines, Israel was more stabilized. Under Avner's direction, once the armies of Israel had sufficiently driven back the Philistines, Avner appointed Ishbosheth, the son of Shaul, as king over Israel. Ishbosheth was recognized as king by northern Israel. In 2 Samuel 4, 2 men who were captains in Shaul's army came to Ishbosheth. One was named Baanah and the other was named Rekav. They went to the house of Ishbosheth in the afternoon while he was taking a nap. They went into the middle of the house pretending to get some wheat. Ishbosheth was lying on his bed in his bedroom. Rekav and Baanah stabbed him in the stomach, killed him, cut off his head, and took it with them. They gave his head to David and said to the king, "Here is the head of Ishbosheth, son of Shaul, your enemy. He tried to kill you. Today, Adonai has paid back Shaul and his family for what they did to you." David replied, "Once a man thought he was bringing me good news. When he told me, 'Shaul is dead,' I seized him and killed him at Ziklag. That was the reward I gave him for his news. So even more, I must put you evil men to death, because you have killed an innocent man on his own bed in his own house." So David commanded his men to kill Rechab and Baanah. They cut off the hands and feet of Rechab and Baanah and hung them over the pool of Hebron. Then they took Ishbosheth's head and buried it in Avner's tomb at Hebron. So all the elders of Israel came to David Hamelech at Hebron, and he made an agreement with them in Hebron in the presence of Adonai. Then they poured oil on David to make him king over Israel. David was now king over both northern Israel and southern Yehudah. After David Hamelech died, his son Shlomo Hamelech reigned after him. 1 Kings 4 verses 29 to 34 says that God gave Shlomo wisdom and exceedingly great understanding and largeness of heart like the sand on the seashore. Thus, Shlomo's wisdom excelled the wisdom of all the men of the east and all the wisdom of Egypt, for he was wiser than all men, and his fame was in all the surrounding nations. Shlomo spoke 3,000 proverbs, and his songs were 1,005. Also he spoke of trees, from the cedar tree of Lebanon, even to the hyssop that springs out of the wall. He spoke also of animals, of birds, of creeping things, and of fish. And men of all nations, from all the kings of the earth who had heard of his wisdom, came to hear the wisdom of Shlomo. What was the most famous story about the wisdom of Shlomo Hamelech? In 1 Kings 3, one day, 2 women who were prostitutes came to Shlomo Hamelech. As they stood before him, one of the women said, "My master, this woman and I live in the same house. I gave birth to a baby while she was there with me. 3 days later, this woman also gave birth to a baby. No one else was in the house with us. It was just the 2 of us. One night, this woman rolled over on her baby and he died. So she took my son from my bed during the night while I was asleep, and she carried him to her bed. Then she put the dead baby in my bed. The next morning, when I got up to feed my baby, I saw that he was dead. When I looked at him more closely, I realized he was not my son." "No," the other woman cried. "The living baby is my son and the dead baby is yours." But the first woman said, "No, the dead baby is yours and the living one is mine." So the 2 women argued before the king. Then Shlomo Hamelech said, "One of you says, 'My son is alive and your son is dead.' Then the other one says, 'No, your son is dead and my son is alive.'" 2 women who were harlots came to the king and stood before him. This is a remarkable testimony to the goodness and generosity of Shlomo Hamelech. Not many kings would take the time to settle a dispute between 2 prostitutes. It seemed like an impossible problem to solve. It was surely one prostitute's word against the other. No one was with them in the house. There was no independent witness to the events. Shlomo Hamelech sent his servants to get a sword. When they brought it to him, he said, "Cut the living baby into 2 pieces and give each woman half." The real mother of the living child was full of love for her son. So she said to the king, "Please, my master, don't kill him. Give the baby to her." But the other woman said, "Neither of us will have him. Cut him into 2 pieces." Then Shlomo Hamelech said, "Don't kill him. Give the baby to the first woman, because she is the real mother." Shlomo Hamelech asked for a sword. For what purpose? Those who stood watching the situation were perhaps wondering and perhaps laughing within themselves. Some of them might even be horrified. The true mother yearned with compassion for her son. the true parental relationship was proved by love. The true mother would rather have the child live without her than to die that day if she insisted on being right. She would rather give up the pleasure of hearing her own son call her Mama in order to save his life. She would rather relinquish the joy of holding her child close to her in order to put his welfare above her own. Shlomo HaMelech somehow knew that the command to cut the child in two would reveal the true mother. The wisdom of Shlomo HaMelech's solution was only apparent and understood when the matter was settled. In the same way, the work of God may seem strange or dangerous, but it will be revealed to be perfect wisdom in the end. When the people of Israel heard about Shlomo HaMelech's decision, they respected him very much. They saw he had wisdom from God to make the right decisions. All Israel heard. Such a wise decision could not be hidden. The matter was soon known throughout the kingdom. The people feared the king, for they saw that the wisdom of God was in him to administer justice. The people of Israel saw that Shlomo had both the wisdom and the courage to do the right thing as the leader. This made them hesitant to disobey the law of the king. Shlomo solved the problem of the two mothers with great wisdom, but he missed the bigger lesson that God was giving him. Shlomo HaMelech had 700 wives and 300 concubines. Some of the women worshipped foreign gods. Shlomo HaMelech had so many women, but the scriptures record that he only had one son, Rehabeam. Shlomo HaMelech wrote 3,000 proverbs and 1,005 songs. He was an incredibly wise man, but his only son was a fool. Shlomo was probably unaware of the significance of the moment, but the action of him ordering for a sword to cut the infant in two was actually an object lesson for himself. It was God trying to teach some wisdom to Shlomo. It was Shlomo HaMelech's own baby, Rehabeam, who split the kingdom of Israel into two. Sometimes God is gracious to give us warnings before something happens. In Genesis 4, we have the record of Cain and Hevel. Cain was a farmer, Hevel became a shepherd. Cain brought an offering of the fruit of the ground to Adonai, while Hevel, he also brought of the firstborn of his flock and their fat portions. Now Adonai looked favorably upon Hevel and his offering, but upon Cain and his offering, Adonai did not look favorably. Cain became very angry and his face changed. Then Adonai said to Cain, "Why are you angry? And why did your countenance fall? If you do well, it will lift. But if you do not do well, sin is crouching at the doorway. Its desire is for you, but you must master it." Cain spoke to Hevel his brother. While they were in the field, Cain rose up against Hevel his brother and killed him. In the book of Exodus, we have the record where God commanded Moshe to convey the message for Pharaoh to send forth the people into the wilderness to worship Adonai. Moshe delivered this warning, and Pharaoh did not heed any of it. God sent 10 plagues with increasing severity: water turning to blood, frogs, lice, swarms of flies or a mixture of wild animals, livestock pestilence, boils, hail, locusts, darkness, and finally, the killing of the firstborn son in every family. God also sent his prophet Yonah Hanavi to Nineveh to warn them that this great city would be overturned. When Yonah's warning reached the king of Nineveh, he rose from his throne, took off his royal robes, covered himself with sackcloth, and sat down in the dust. The king decreed, "Do not let people or animals, herds or flocks, taste anything. Do not let them eat or drink. But let people and animals be covered with sackcloth. Let everyone call urgently on God. Let them give up their evil ways and their violence." The great city of Nineveh repented because of the warning, and God relented from bringing His immediate judgment upon them. In Mark 14, Adonai Yeshua gave Shimon Kepha a warning. "Truly I tell you," Yeshua replied, "this very night, before the rooster crows twice, you will deny me 3 times. But Kepha kept insisting, "Even if I have to die with you, I will never deny you." Yeshua told Shimon Kepha, "Before the rooster crows twice, you will deny me 3 times. Did Kepha heed the warning? Have we ever experienced something that God warned us about? Have we read something in the scriptures, a passage that spoke to us? Were we listening to someone share and expound scriptures through a sermon? Have we experienced a friend or even a stranger saying something and the words just clicked and immediately gave us the solution to a situation that was challenging to us or a decision that we needed to make? Have we suddenly experienced our life events change? One thing after another just happened. It was as if someone unseen suddenly took charge of events and organized things to fall into place. Things happened in such a way that could never have been orchestrated by human hands. My friends, when we cannot trace God's hand, we can trust His heart. I have heard it said that when coincidences happen, it is when God chooses to remain anonymous. When God takes the time and the effort to give us a warning, we need to heed that warning. Don't be like Shlomo HaMelech. He completely missed God's warning. May we apply the words of Yeshayahu Hanavi. Your ears will hear a word behind you saying, "This is the way, walk in it," when you turn to the right or when you turn to the left. We need to walk upright with God. Being upright with God is Yashar El or Yisrael. May the nations heed the urging of the prophets and the teaching of Rav Shaul HaShaliach, the Apostle Paul, to engraft ourselves to Yisrael. Thank you for joining me. I pray that this message inspires and challenges you. God bless you and your family. Shalom.